Most people who dream about farming think about wide open land, fresh air, and the satisfaction of growing something with their own hands. What they do not think about is losing money. And yet, that is exactly what happens to thousands of farmers every single year. Not because they worked hard, not because the weather was bad, but because they planted the wrong crop. Here's the thing nobody tells you before you put your first seed in the ground. Some crops look incredibly attractive on the surface. They are everywhere. Grocery stores are full of them. Farmers grow millions of tons of the stuff every year, and most of those farmers are barely breaking even. Some are losing money on every single harvest. Meanwhile, there are other crops, ones you might have never even heard of, that are quietly making small growers very, very wealthy. And we are going to get to those. But first, you need to understand exactly why some crops destroy your margins before you even have a chance. Let us start with the most iconic crop in the world, the one that put American agriculture on the map: corn. Now, before you push back on this, yes, there are large corn operations that are profitable. But here is the reality for the average grower. The cost to produce 1 bushel of corn, when you factor in seed, fertilizer, fuel, equipment, land rent, and labor, typically runs between $4.50 and $5.50 per bushel depending on your region. In many recent years, corn prices have hovered right around that same range, sometimes just above, sometimes below. That means an enormous amount of effort, capital, and risk for a margin that can vanish entirely if prices dip by 20 cents. And they do dip. Corn is traded as a commodity on global markets, which means a bumper crop in Brazil, a trade policy shift in Washington, or an unexpected surge in ethanol demand can erase your profit before your crop even comes out of the ground. Small and mid-sized growers are essentially price takers with no power to negotiate. The scale required to make corn work financially is massive, and most family operations simply cannot reach it. Right next to corn in terms of margin pain is soybeans. This might surprise you because soybeans have had some genuinely strong years. But strip away the outlier seasons and look at the long-term picture. Input costs for soybeans have surged. Herbicide costs, seed costs for proprietary varieties, and fuel costs have all climbed sharply. And soybeans share the same fundamental problem as corn. They are a bulk commodity priced by forces entirely outside your control. When China reduces its purchases, when South American harvests come in above expectations, soybean prices fall, and there is nothing a small American grower can do about it. The break-even point is dangerously close to the market price in most years. And break-even is not a business. Break-even is just surviving until the next bad year breaks you. Now let us talk about wheat. Wheat is romanticized in a way that almost no other crop is. Ancient grain, the backbone of civilization, fields of gold. The reality is considerably less poetic. Wheat prices have been under structural pressure for decades. Hard red winter wheat, which is what most people picture, often trades at prices that leave growers with margins in the range of $10 to $30 per acre in a good year. That sounds okay until you realize what it takes to farm hundreds of acres, maintain equipment, manage risk, and still pay yourself. Soft white wheat in the Pacific Northwest has its own set of challenges. Moisture, disease pressure, and market access all create volatility. Wheat requires significant input investment and returns some of the lowest gross revenues per acre of any major row crop. The farmers who are still growing it profitably are typically doing so at enormous scale, with generations of owned land and paid-off equipment behind them. Cotton is another one that looks different from the outside than it does from the balance sheet. Cotton has 2 revenue streams, the fiber and the seed, which sounds like an advantage. But cotton is also one of the most input-intensive crops in existence. Pesticide costs alone can be staggering, because cotton is essentially a pest magnet. Water requirements are enormous in the regions where it grows best. Equipment is specialized and expensive. And like the other commodity crops we have discussed, cotton prices are set globally. The margin per acre, once all inputs are accounted for, often leaves growers dependent on federal subsidy programs just to stay viable. That is not a business model, that is a lifeline. Here is one that might genuinely shock you: potatoes. Everyone eats potatoes. The demand seems endless, but potato production is a brutal business. Seed potato costs are significant. Disease management, blight, early blight, late blight, various viruses, requires aggressive fungicide programs. Storage is a major cost factor because potatoes cannot simply sit in a field after harvest. They need controlled atmosphere storage, which requires infrastructure investment. And the fresh market for potatoes is dominated by large buyers, grocery chains and food service companies, who have enormous leverage over growers. Contract prices often barely cover production costs. The open market for potatoes can swing wildly, and when prices crash, a grower sitting on 100,000 pounds of stored potatoes has very few options. The processing market, French fries and chips, is locked up by contracted relationships between large processors and large growers. Small and mid-sized potato operations are being squeezed from every direction simultaneously. Onions are next, and this one is personal for a lot of small growers because onions seem like such a practical, universal crop. Everyone needs onions. You plant them, they grow, you sell them. Except it is nothing like that simple. Onion prices are extraordinarily volatile. A single regional oversupply can crash prices to the point where it costs more to harvest and haul your crop than you can get for it. This literally happens. Growers have bulldozed onion fields rather than pay to harvest a crop with negative returns. The storage window creates pressure to sell at specific times, and buyers know exactly when that window closes. Thin margins, high volatility, and significant disease and pest management costs make onions one of the most financially treacherous vegetables a small grower can choose. Commodity rice in the conventional sense, flooded paddy rice in the major producing states, shares the same structural problems as corn and wheat: enormous water requirements, specialized equipment, regional limitations, and global commodity pricing. The infrastructure investment to even enter rice production is prohibitive for most growers, and the returns per acre are modest at best. There are niche premium rice markets we could talk about, and we will, but conventional commodity rice is not a path to prosperity for a new grower. Processing tomatoes deserve a spot on this list because they illustrate a trap that catches a lot of first-generation growers. Processing tomatoes, the ones that go into sauce, ketchup, and canned products, are grown under contract, which sounds safe. You have a guaranteed buyer. But that contract price is set by the processor, not you. It reflects the processor's cost structure and their need to compete with imports. The contract price often leaves growers with margins measured in single-digit dollars per ton of product. When you calculate how many tons per acre you need to cover your input costs, equipment depreciation, and labor, the math frequently does not work unless you are farming at very large scale with very high yield efficiency. Small contract tomato growers routinely exit the business after 1 or 2 seasons. And the last crop on the difficult side of this equation is conventional cut flowers for wholesale. This one surprises people because flowers seem premium, and retail flowers are premium. At the florist, absolutely. But if you are selling wholesale into a florist supply chain or a grocery flower department, you are competing with flowers flown in fresh from Ecuador and Colombia, where labor costs are a fraction of what they are in the United States. Your beautiful sunflowers or standard roses cannot compete on price with South American product at the wholesale level. Many domestic flower growers have exited this space entirely or shifted to direct retail models. Growing flowers is not the problem. Growing flowers and trying to sell them at commodity wholesale prices is where the margin goes to die. Now here is where this gets genuinely interesting. Because while all of those crops are fighting over thin margins and global competition, there is a completely different world operating in parallel. Crops where the margin is not $10 an acre, not $50 an acre, but thousands of dollars per acre, some of them per quarter acre. And the farmers growing these crops are working smaller plots of land and earning more than large commodity operations with 10 times the acreage. Let us start with saffron. If you have not seriously looked at the economics of saffron, what you are about to hear might be difficult to believe. Saffron is the most expensive spice in the world by weight. The dried stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower sell for anywhere from $500 to $5,000 per pound, depending on grade and market channel. A single well-managed quarter acre of saffron can produce several pounds of dried product per season. The math on that is extraordinary. Now the caveats are real. The harvest is entirely hand labor because the stigmas must be picked by hand within hours of the flower opening. The harvest window is brief and intense, and it takes patience to establish a saffron operation because the corms need time to multiply. But for a small grower willing to put in that hand labor, there is genuinely no commodity crop on earth that can touch the revenue per square foot of saffron. Ginseng is another one, and this is a slow play crop with enormous payoff potential. American ginseng root takes 5 to 8 years to mature properly, which immediately scares most people away. But that is exactly why it is valuable. The retail price for mature, wildcrafted style cultivated American ginseng root is consistently in the range of $300 to $900 per dry pound, and high-quality roots fetch even more in specialty Asian markets where American ginseng is prized. An acre of mature ginseng is worth tens of thousands of dollars at harvest. The challenge is the time horizon and the disease management during the growing period. Ginseng is susceptible to several fungal diseases and needs specific forest or shade canopy conditions. But for a landowner with woodland and patience, this is a genuinely transformative crop. Wasabi is third on this list, and the reason it belongs here is counterintuitive. Wasabi is absurdly difficult to grow. It requires cold, clean, moving water, specific humidity, partial shade, and several years to reach harvestable size. That difficulty is precisely what creates the margin. Real wasabi, as opposed to the green-dyed horseradish paste sold at most sushi restaurants, sells for wholesale prices between $30 and $50 per pound, and retail prices often reach $150 per pound or more. There are very few commercial wasabi growers in North America, which means demand consistently outpaces supply. Specialty grocers, high-end restaurants, and Japanese food importers actively seek domestic wasabi sources. The barriers to entry protect the growers who push through them. Vanilla is next, and vanilla orchid cultivation in non-traditional regions is becoming one of the most interesting small farm opportunities in warmer domestic climates. Pure vanilla beans sell for over $200 per pound wholesale, and at retail the numbers are significantly higher. The challenge is that vanilla orchids require hand pollination. There is no natural pollinator outside their native range, and they take 18 months from pollination to harvestable bean. But a modest greenhouse or shade house setup can produce meaningful quantities of beans from a small footprint. The demand for non-Madagascar, ethically sourced vanilla is growing rapidly among premium food brands, and domestic producers can command premium prices based on provenance alone. And the fifth crop, the one that is probably already transforming farms in your state whether you have noticed or not, is hemp for CBD and specialty fiber. Now this requires immediate nuance because the CBD market had a chaotic period following legalization. But the underlying economics for well-positioned growers with direct-to-consumer or direct-to-processor relationships remain powerful. High CBD hemp grown organically for extract can generate thousands of dollars per acre for established growers with processing relationships locked in. Hemp fiber for specialty textile markets is experiencing renewed interest as sustainability-focused brands seek domestic sources. This is not a crop you enter speculatively, but growers who have established supply chain relationships are seeing margins that commodity row crop farmers cannot imagine. So here is what all of this actually means for someone sitting here thinking about what to plant, or thinking about whether the farm they are running is working as hard as it could be. The crops with terrible margins share something. They are all priced by forces you cannot control. They require massive scale to overcome their thin margins, and they put you in direct competition with global supply chains that can undercut you at any moment. You are a price taker in a market where the price is set by people and governments and weather patterns on the other side of the planet. The crops with extraordinary margins share something too. They are difficult. They require knowledge, patience, specific conditions, or hand labor that cannot be mechanized. That difficulty is not a bug. It is the entire point. The difficulty is what creates the margin. The moment something becomes easy to grow at scale, the competition floods in and the price collapses. Saffron is valuable because no one has figured out how to pick it with a machine. Ginseng is valuable because no one wants to wait 8 years. Wasabi is valuable because most people cannot grow it at all. The farm of the future, the one that actually survives and thrives, is not necessarily the biggest one. It is the most specialized one. It is the one growing the crop that is genuinely difficult to replicate, selling directly to buyers who cannot get that product anywhere else, and keeping its margin intact not through volume, but through irreplaceability. The farmers who understand that are already out there, on small plots of land, earning more per acre than their neighbors with fields 10 times the size. They are not waiting for commodity prices to recover. They are not hoping for a government program to bridge the gap. They found the crops that work in their favor instead of against them, and they never looked back. That is the lesson buried inside every single one of these 15 crops. Margin does not come from scale, it comes from differentiation, and the crops that teach you that most painfully are the ones everyone else is already growing.